Thank you so much for joining us for this 6th edition of Costa. I'm your host. My name is Andrew Mwansa, sitting in for Costa Mwansa. Now, the Tonse Alliance today finds itself at a critical juncture as Zambia's main opposition coalition, grappling with leadership changes, intra-alliance tensions, and shifting political strategies, while gearing up for the 2026 general elections. Following the death of its chairman, former President Edgar Lungu, in June of 2025, Honorable Given Luminda was appointed acting chairperson tasked with holding together a diverse group of political actors. What began in the late 2024 as a pact between 5 political parties, including Patriotic Front, Patriots for Economic Progress, and New Congress Party, has since expanded to include others like the Forum for Democracy and Development, FDD, and Zambia Must Prosper. The alliance has tested its strength in a series of parliamentary by-elections, registering a win in Petoke Central and strong showings in both Kawambo and Lumezi. Now, these contexts have helped shape its national presence, but they have also exposed underlying tensions, particularly over leadership dynamics and power-sharing arrangements. As Zambia inches closer to the polls, one question looms large. Will the opposition unite under one umbrella to unseat the UPND in the 2026 general elections? You're joining us on Channel 27 on DSTV and Channel 20 on GoTV. My guest tonight is Tonse Alliance Secretary General and the Patriotic Front Secretary General, Honorable Raphael Nakacinda. Honorable Raphael Nakacinda, good evening. Always a pleasure having you on Costa.
Good evening, Mr. Mwansa, and thank you very much for inviting me. Of course, we are still in morning, and we're hoping that this episode will quickly come to an temporal end, hopefully permanent end, by way of having our late president put to rest. But as it were, condolences to Zambian people and obviously to PF members across the country who are still grieving the loss of our great leader. And we are hoping that the little contribution we're making as a party with other players should be able to resolve the issues by the time we get into the 4th of August.
I'd like to begin off with politics with you, Honorable Nakacinda, and my first question to you is in finding out what the status of Tonse Alliance is as of today. From last week, we did see screaming headlines of who must be chairman of Tonse. Is it the deputy chairman, who in this state at the moment is Mr. Danny Pule, or must it be the acting president of the Patriotic Front, who now is Honorable Government?
I think the starting point is that it would be important to appreciate where we're coming from, so that you can then, fully conclude what the issues are and how we should navigate around, those issues. Patriotic Front suffered, a clear state-orchestrated interference with the leadership of the party. We lost election in 2021. President Lungu went on sabbatical leave. There was initially a process that was initiated within the party to go to a conference so that a new leader will be elected. But in the process, there was a debate within the country calling for ECO to come back. A year and some months down the line, into 2 years, the calls were louder to a point where the party started debating, should we proceed to a conference, even when the members of our party had expressed interest to lead the party. The short and long of it is that we all succumbed to the call for President Lungu to come back into active politics. He also, in the process, I think, had no choice, even when he was adamant that, no, leave me alone, let there be a process through which a new leader will emerge. Immediately, just prior to that, I think the UPND were dead scared of the idea that President Lungu would come back to active politics. I think they took advantage of some adventurous, steps that our colleague Mo Sampa, who at the time had issues with the party, and I think they had suffered 4 weeks of suspension. I think as a way of emotionally retaliating, called for what he called a retreat. Later on, it became too adventurous, and the pieces were, moving around. From what he had said, he wasn't even, he didn't even realize that the UPN had taken interest in the process. They branded it a conference. He told him, you saw how that the state got so interested that they had sent a battalion of police there, offered him security and all kinds of things that happened, which basically confirmed the fears and the intelligence report we had gotten that there was so much interest from the UPND that had we gone to the conference at the time, they were even willing to sponsor a surrogate presidential candidate. Fast forward, Mao Sampa realizes, I think what he participated in was not only injurious to PF but injurious to democracy, and began to engage the party, engage President Lungu, engage the Secretary General, and the members of parliament and others, I think, who were, trying to reason with him that the path he has taken is not a good path. He himself has confessed and traversed the country that ultimately the uniform message he was getting is that what he did was wrong. We come to resolve. But in the meantime, every time we attempted, regardless of this illegality, to participate in by-elections, we were denied. Remember that it started with the saga of Kabushi, Kwacha. Fast forward, we ended up trying to find a bypass by creating an alliance called UKA. And we were hoping that everybody has woken up, and hence the name UKA, that we are besieged with a ruling party and colleagues in government who are willing to do anything, including that which is illegal or criminal in nature, to try and destroy and interfere with the operation of the opposition. It's another program we should have to discuss just the existence of the opposition from 2021 to today. But I think the facts are there because we all live in the same environment. Our sting in UKA, unfortunately, exposed the fact that some of our colleagues were more optimistic in dealing with the issues of Patriotic Front than they were inclusive in trying to see that what affects PF affects the other person or another political party. So as PF, we also realized that maybe we may have gone into UKA without clearly stipulating what our rules of engagements were or were supposed to be. So we retreated, and as a party, came up with another committee led by Dr. Kanishas Banda, which went around the country to consult stakeholders on how best this time around we can have a formidable alliance. The initial motivation was to go back to UKA so that we can be able to say, colleagues, if you are to relate with us moving forward, these are the rules of engagement. But I think UKA had reached a point where the attitude on a number of political parties that were participating, they were not willing to listen. But some of the people who had participated in UKA and saw things from the same perspective that we were seeing them as PF were already debating behind the scene with the president of PF, Dr. Edgar Chagalungu, and the Secretary General. And we engaged a few technical people to start working out on an alternative platform, which I think after consulting, the acronym that made sense was Tonse, meaning together, alliance. And that's how Tonse, was formed. And fast forward, we had concluded our internal process through that ad hoc committee to come up with 14 rules of engagement. And among the 14 rules of engagement, fundamental are that realizing that PF is the main and bigger political party in opposition, going by not only the structural arrangement across the country, representation in parliament, representation at local government level in terms of mayors, council chairpersons, councillors, and so on, it was befitting for PF to anchor this alliance, hence the word anchor political party. And for PF to anchor this alliance and get every member of Patriotic Front, including sympathizers, to support the alliance, we needed to make decisions in terms of the leadership. And the structural arrangement of Tonse was very deliberate. The chairmanship and the presidency of this alliance was preserved for Patriotic Front, and based on the rules of engagement. Because for us, when we were proposing a working relationship with others politically, we were very clear. We will provide leadership at the level of president. We will provide leadership at the level of chairmanship. And we will also anchor the alliance at the level of Secretary General, because within PF, the Secretary General is responsible for mobilization and putting the structures together for whatever political activities you are engaged in. It was going to be out of it was going to be an offside or a situation where it will not work to have a stranger trying to governize, because before you go to mobilize the public, you first of all have to mobilize your structure arrangement. The reality is, and you have to excuse, I have a little irritation on my because of a cough. The reality is that the PF is the one that has structures across the country. So you can't have, whether it is PEP, whether it is Dr. Dan Pule's political party, or Zememas Prosper, those who have applied to join, or any other political party, say they are going to mobilize the structures across the country because they don't have. That's the reality. Okay? Somebody out of optimism may argue otherwise, but the truth of the matter is that the only political party that has structures across the country, save for those who are attempting to cut our structures with a view that maybe they can win them to a political party, who usually conduct these things from an immoral, optimistic point of view. But for those who are genuine in a relationship with PF, we have set rules that I think we will not be cannibalizing political, members and cadres from each other's political parties. On that basis, we entrusted individuals to come up with, what was to be the MOU. Later on, I think we were briefed collectively that an MOU, I think, should translate into what was to be a constitution. Later on, we discovered a few things which we are dealing with at this particular stage in terms of the integrity of the process to come up with that MOU, and also what was now to be called a constitution. So we have entrusted a team of lawyers led by State Counsel Chifumbanda to look at the documents on the basis of the terms of reference and the rules of engagement from PF, terms of reference by Tonse, rules of engagement from PF, so that we can be able to harmonize. So when you see that there could be some statement and some insinuations around, are purely on the basis that there could be a variation of how people want to interpret the document that is expected to govern our alliance. But I think what is important is for me to assure the Zambian people, assure the members of PF, assure the members of Tonse that there's nothing too sacred that cannot be discussed, provided we all remain focused on the bigger picture, that the Zambian people are waiting for a united opposition under Tonse, and indeed others that may want to participate in this process, because everybody is now affected and resolved that we don't need to continue with UPND beyond 2026. And as Secretary General, and I also can speak for Honorable Winda, our approach on this matter is not only Honorable Winda and myself, but Central Committee of Patriotic Front and the leadership, members of Parliament. We are all desirous that whatever we do, whatever effort we put in this thing, and every contribution we make is to make it work, because it also speaks to the legacy of our former president. He tried to bend backwards. Even when he was insulted, abused by little kids, he still, in the interest of the opposition coming together, is Stu insisted, let's work together. Let's work together. And for today, I'm saying, colleagues, all those who seem to be sharpening hatchets and so on for a later day, you're wasting your time. All of us must be sharpening what kind of wisdom we're going to deploy to get everybody together. If it is about the governing document, let's discuss it. Are there people who feel that they want to negate their commitment to what PF presented? Come and justify yourself and say, okay, we have second thoughts after committing to the 14 rules of engagement. We think that we can tweak here and there. Issuing public statements, like we have witnessed in the past 1 week or so, is just detrimental to the alliance. And there's no well-meaning Zambian who accept to have individuals beginning to preempt based on their optimism or indeed what they are posturing to try and position themselves. After all, when it comes to the leadership of both Patriotic Front and also Tonse, it will be more subjected to what the Zambian people will be demanding, and the qualities will be put there. And there will be a robust, transparent process of scrutinizing leadership before we can arrive at who would be the flag bearer for all of us in 2026. So if you have it, relax. If you are ordained, relax. If you are endorsed, relax. If you think you have the qualities over and above others, relax. The only way you can start squeaking and misbehaving now is because you don't have it. And you think through manipulation, through outdoing one another, that's the only way to go. True leaders actually always are in a place where they even say, please choose another person.
Is this you confirming that there are tensions within Tonse Alliance and that people who are trying to take advantage of the situation you're in at the moment?
It's not an issue of really confirming or not. It's an issue of speaking to reality. Where there are human beings and there's a vacuum, there is always an inevitable situation where people start posturing, people start being optimistic and so on. It's not a negative, it's a positive, because as you get to a crossroad of choosing leadership, if there are no manifestations of people being optimistic, posturing and so on, you may be deceived to think that you're choosing the right leader when you're choosing a wrong one. So for us, and for me, I think it's a good environment. Let people manifest themselves. They will manifest childishness, they will manifest optimism, they will manifest corruption, they will manifest, divide and rule attitude, they will manifest all kinds of these negative vibes. But within that mix of things, a true leader will emerge. A leader that will be unifying. A leader that will be focused on the bigger picture. A leader that will have genuine empathy for the Zambian people. A leader who will be a servant of the people, not a master. A leader that will not be focused on, achieving or occupying a position as an end in itself. I mean, there are people who think that becoming president and being called Your Excellency is an achievement. That's cheap. I think the greatest of all things is the virtues that are in the scriptures, which say the end of the matter is greater than the beginning thereof. Hakainde Hichilema didn't achieve being by virtue of him being declared president of Zambia. His achievement is after his tour of duty. We're going to then examine what he has done and then be able to see whether it was worth him being in that particular office. And I think having had the experiences with Kaunda, Chiluba, Mwanawasa, Rupia Banda, Michael Sata, Edgar Lungu, and HH, Zambians are more careful. They are not looking for sophisticated things in a president. They are just looking for a genuine patriot who prioritizes their interest and not go into office because they think, driving a vehicle with a orange flag, that's an achievement. That's not what the Zambian people are looking for. They are looking for a patriot, one who will be a servant of the people, one whose virtues will be so deep that if they found themselves implicated in immoral activities, whether directly or indirectly, they are even ready to step aside and say, I'm not worthy being in this office because this criminality, I can't be associated with it.
How would you describe the relationship that you leaders share within Tonse Alliance and political players? Is it a healthy relationship?
In view of the level of maturity of politics in Zambia and our democracy, we can say it's a circumcised, relationship, but one which will invite some level of maturity on those who are experienced in politics. because you see, it's a process where you have to tolerate, but at the same time mentor others, because they may not even see that they're making mistakes. They may not even see that they are being destructive, not because they want to be destructive. It's just that maybe they have never really been exposed to that level of politics, and they are excited, and therefore they want to prove things and prove that I'm right and so on. By the time they're waking up to the fact that they're not right, it may be too late. So it requires a lot of maturity in the sense that you observe more than you react. So if you have noticed that there's been a lot of statements, a lot of things that are going on, but there's been a reluctance on the part of those of us to which the stakes are not only high, but I think that the demand on us is higher, because we have been in this game longer than some of these colleagues that we're working with. Some of us have been entrusted with this, responsibility of leadership at a level of cabinet and so on, and therefore the demand is higher in terms of maturity and so on. So there will be more of approaching things from a place of restitution, a place of helping to get people to understand that you don't have to prove a point by being aggressive. Sometimes you prove a point by cooling off and interacting and dialoguing, and that's the approach we're going to take.
How many political parties are now in Tonse Alliance? Would you know the number?
Well, at least I can speak to the fact that plus minus 16, 17 organizations.
Organizations.
Yeah, there are political parties and also civil society organizations, youth movements and so on that are part of Tonse.
In April of this year, the Socialist Party expressed interest to join the Tonse Alliance. They made an application. What's the status of the Socialist Party joining the Tonse Alliance?
Well, the application was submitted, I think, through one of the technical people. And it was made known to all of us. And at some point when we were discussing arising from the resolution of what we termed the United Opposition Front, there was a resolution that in participating in the Rumezi by-election, we needed to feature one candidate. And I think everybody admitted in reality that those who were in the United Opposition Front, there were three political parties that were participating, CF, Socialist Party, and Patriotic Front, together with Tonse, and that we needed to sit down and agree on who should feature a candidate. That's when we had the opportunity to get to closer proximity with the Socialist Party. During that discussion, of course, the application was made known to all of us that they desired to join Tonse. But I must say that later on, the leader of Socialist Party, Dr. Fred Membe, indicated that I think let's put that application on ice due to some developments and things that had happened at the time. And therefore that application, like I say, has been suspended. It has not yet been renewed. I think same applies to Mr. Fube. Mr. Fube did make an application. I remember a Secretary General organizing a meeting with President Edgar Chagalungu. We first started with a church gathering in Avondale. We had a funeral arrangement, I think, or a memorial, if I'm not mistaken. After that whole, indication, I think it was a funeral. After that interaction, we then retreated to lunch, and I think he had been seeking for closer interaction and personal interaction of President Lungu before he could finally decide with his colleagues. Then I had a presentation from his Secretary General around the desire to join Tonse. When the date was set for him to be unveiled and sign the constitution, for whatever reason, he was not available. And that opportunity has not yet been restored, because shortly after that, President Lungu went for medical checkup, and we are in this situation. So that's the status. But otherwise,
so it's safe to say that Zambia's Prosper is not part of the Tonse Alliance.
Well, they have not officially been unveiled as a member of Tonse, but they have made commentaries and to that effect participated in some activities that are related to Tonse. But those are matters which I think are more internal than for public discourse, which I think will be resolved as we move forward.
Also, help us understand the terms of reference, for this alliance, the Tonse Alliance, Honorable Secretary General, because what we're taught by yourself and what we see in by-elections is that the NCP is a special purpose vehicle that you're using to field in candidates, and you already have one candidate, in Parliament from Petauke. What then happens to these other political parties when they join the Tonse Alliance? Are they swallowed, by NCP and the Tonse? Will they be given an opportunity to participate in by-elections as well as they join Tonse Alliance? What are the terms of reference in terms of who to pick when you go for a by-election?
I think let's understand the demands of the Zambian people is that the opposition must come together. And in coming together, they don't want the votes to be split. And if they don't want the vote to be split, it means they are demanding for a single candidate.
That's true.
Okay? And that single candidate in this case would be in 2026 at presidential level, at parliamentary level, you know what it means, at local government level. So to that effect, they must really be consensus agreed upon. Save for the fact that PF is still resolving its internal issues. Naturally, PF would have been and is supposed to be the platform for which candidates will be featured, because we have representation at all levels, local government, excuse me, at parliamentary level, and so on. But because we are yet to resolve those issues, we then, decided as a council of leaders which political party are going to choose as a special purpose vehicle. From PF and Central Committee, we knew there were other political parties that have existed for longer than NCP and maybe have even had representation at parliamentary level and so on. But because there was an argument within opposition which led to abuse towards PF, suggesting that because of the Mao Sampa, now Chavinga, we have issues. We chose a political party that basically didn't really, not to embarrass Peter Chanda, but as a reality was insignificant. To do two things: to also prove to UPND as well as the Zambian people that the PF is intact. The papers at the Register of Society, as manipulated by the UPND government, may be in the hands of another person, but the PF remains a solid political movement that even on SCP would produce a member of parliament and will participate and be able to produce the results we are producing, including being a formidable threat to change of government in 2026. It was a deliberate political move. Also to encourage our members that you don't have to be faint-hearted around issues of the society. We can reincarnate ourselves even on an insignificant platform like NCP, and still our strength will be seen. So even as we go towards 2026, that message is loud and clear. Those who are relating with Patriotic Front, we are saying we will be magnanimous enough to appreciate that each and every political party and political player and personality brings value to the table, and that will never be taken for granted. But we are also just saying, with all humility and humbleness you can talk about, we are saying, can we be realistic and appreciate the fact that the anchor political party, Patriotic Front, is the biggest political party in opposition, and therefore we need to manage and harness the strength PF brings to the table and not insult, not abuse. That will not help us. We should always remind ourselves that the real enemy of the Zambian people is not the things that are being talked out through propaganda. It is the mismanagement of the affairs of the people of Zambia by UPND, and that's the problem that we need to solve.
Whoever joins the Tonse Alliance must be ready to abide by the 14 rules of engagement, that there's already an anchor political party, there's already a special purpose vehicle political party that you're using to field in candidates. This must be set,
As the position is today, because it has not been vacated, that's how we're going to proceed. You know,
are there conversations for you to revise this position?
No, there are conversations in relation to revising the governing documents because of the fact that there are questions around the integrity of the process to arrive at what we are calling the governing document. Because we've discovered that could have been at some point some gaps, which I don't want to describe in a particular way because I think it's best that they are resolved internally. Okay, but in terms of the special purpose vehicle, it was a resolution of the Council of Leaders, and that resolution has not been challenged, and there is no justification to challenge it. It has not been revived. So anybody who comes to Tonse must know that there's already a special purpose vehicle. Now, listen, this is 2025, July. Politics are dynamic, you understand? And things can change even in a week. And we have always said to other political players that please don't have fixed positions to a point of becoming so rogue and unreasonable, and then get shocked when you find that a week later things happen that really destabilize what you thought was constant. None of us expected that our flag bearer, President Edgar Chagwa, would leave us in the manner that he left us. Okay? That development in itself has shaken the government, has shaken Hakainde Hichilema. There are some in UPND who could have been wishing that ECL should die, but they didn't anticipate the consequence of such a death. You understand? That's how life is. You are never in control of tomorrow. Even scriptures, being a Christian nation, tells us that you are only in control of today. Tomorrow you never know what it brings.
What it brings.
So to that effect, there are people who are trying to have a fixed position today, but they don't know that tomorrow may bring a different dynamic. And what I'm saying is that we have to be strategic enough. We have to be flexible enough, not compromising principle, but compromising and adjusting our strategy as we move forward. And as Secretary General, I'm saying this authoritatively, that we have to navigate smartly strategic to outwit the dictatorship of UPND. And we must have big hearts, magnanimous enough to tolerate, including the most irritating characters within the opposition, for purposes of making sure that nobody is left behind, no stone is left unturned, for us to defeat the greatest enemy that is destroying this country. It's not now about personal interests. It's not about comfortability for those who are in the political arena. Sometimes, like ECO would preach, referring to Michael Sata, you may even have to have people who yesterday were uncomfortable to relate with, but there was nothing fundamental. Maybe it was personality clashes, to just come together and say, colleagues, for the sake of the future of the country, let's work together.
If I move to the leaked audio on the economy and other issues pertaining to the FIC, as we close on this issue of the alliance, I'm meant to believe that very soon you'll be going for a convention as a patriotic front. You'll be discussing issues around the convention. The moment the convention is done, you elect your president. This president automatically becomes chairman of Tonse. Is that right?
Yes, that's the position as the things stand, yes.
And if that person becomes chairman of Tonse, then does he or she automatically become presidential candidate for Tonse ahead of the election?
For as long as the status quo remains as it is today, at the time that we're having the election within PF and the leader emerges, that leader automatically becomes the chairman and also automatically becomes the flag bearer. If you look at the document that everybody signed, it even named ECL as a presidential candidate and PF as the anchor political party. You understand? Meaning that the one who replaces ECL immediately gets into the shoes of ECL, immediately takes the position ECL held in Tonse. Because this is an alliance of political parties. We are not creating another political party. Okay? So each political party that comes to the table, there was a matrix that the technical people came with that dictated their membership and what they bring to the table. There was a matrix. So PF didn't assume the position of anchor political party from without. It was not an issue of a pronouncement from PF.
Yeah.
There was a matrix to which all of us were subjected.
Yeah.
And as we answered each and every box that we needed to tick, it eventually spoke to our status.
So as things stand, if any among the opposition political party players wants to be the flag bearer for the Tonse, they'll have to participate in the patriotic front, convention for them to qualify.
I think in this case, now you're asking a question in relation to PF. How are you searching for leadership? Maybe that's a question in PF. We have said it will not be an exclusive club. The unfortunate part is that there are people who, for logical purposes, if they desire and have the appetite to participate in the elections of PF, they should have dissolved their political party and joined PF. There are people who are not realistic in politics. They admire the idea of being considered for presidency in PF, but they maybe prematurely formed a political party. But they have too much ego. They are nursing an idea out there which is unattainable, of suggesting that they are the ones who are worth leading PF. But they are talking from another anthill. It can't work. If you are you lead a political party, the only thing you can do to associate with the PF is to join Tonse. And when you join Tonse, you are bound to the rules of engagement and the terms of reference. That's the reality. There's nothing else that can happen. The process of internally choosing a leader in PF is an independent process from Tonse. Zambia must prosper after they have been unveiled. If they are going to a conference later before the election, they will have to go to a conference and choose their leader. Which leader will represent them at the Tonse, alas. Just like Dr. Danpule's political party, PEP and so on, will have to go to the internal processes of choosing a leader. We may find ourselves by the time the parliament is dissolved, we have a new set of personalities in the Council of Leaders because political parties have gone to their conferences or conventions and have elected new people as leaders. That's the reality. That's why it's called an alliance.
When are you going for the convention as a patriotic front?
Well, it's not in my place to preempt Central Committee. Remember, we are still mourning. We haven't even put to rest our leader. And we are also sorting out a few housekeeping issues, which I think we'll be able to clean up in the next few weeks. And when that is done, we are going to make ourselves, we're going to pronounce ourselves. And because we are committed to a transparent process, there will be nothing done under the carpet. Everything will be pronounced according to the dictates of our constitution.
The country, the past week, has been discussing a leaked audio, allegedly involving the leader of opposition, Honorable Robert Chabinga, with his counterpart, Honorable Doreen Mwamba, Minister responsible for community development. The revelations of the audio are scandalous in nature, quite shameful and a bit, embarrassing. I'd like to get the position of the Tonse and the Patriotic Front regarding, this audio that has leaked.
I think not quite embarrassing. It is extremely embarrassing. It's a scandal, which is also a test on the part of those who are in government. It is a test in the sense that not only their moral, but also their commitment to the rule of law, their commitment to the rules and the laws that govern us has been tested to the limit, and they have failed each one of them, starting with the presidency. Because the only response I've gotten from the presidency is Zamasaka calling Hot FM and saying something that doesn't make sense. But what is even more challenging to comprehend is the response we got from the Vice President on the floor of Parliament. I have said, and I'll say it again, our good mother has been a source of embarrassment. She has rarely given an intelligent answer on the floor of Parliament. Okay. We had her elder sister, Madam Inongawina. She was always measured. She was always well researched. And she was honest enough that if she didn't have an answer, she would consider, say, I don't have an answer here. Please, can you raise a question so that the minister responsible can respond? So that there could be a research response taken to Parliament. But the emotional outburst that comes from Madam Narumango, including on this subject, and they think that what they say in Parliament, at State House, and so on, remains within the confines of that. They are in government. They are scrutinized both local and internationally. And for the past 4 years, we have been a source and a subject of ridicule as a country because of the UPND. That audio puts President President HH at the center of criminal activities. Why? Not just because of the fact that there was an audio leaked, but the audio exposes the fact that President Lungu called this fellow, President HH. I don't know, maybe I miss my president today, so his name is in my mouth. But President HH is at the center of this criminality because of the fact that this society misfit called Chavinga says that after midnight he was called 12 times by the president, 30 times by the director of intelligence. Now, before we go further, the director of intelligence runs the institution called the Office of the President. That is an institution which is, I would say, the last institution in the line of defense to manage the presidency. Those are the people expected to tell the president the truth, the status of the nation, and the surrounding environment, including the globe. That's why every embassy and other institutions, we attach officers from that office so that the presidency is never taken by surprise. How is it that they can be quoted to be part of a scheme to aid a chap like Chavinga to go and undertake the activities that you're talking about in South Africa? Even to a point of him having the courage to call a minister. He was not calling a UPND cadre. When UPND cadres are speaking and trying to defend that nonsense, they are so innocent. This is a person who was called a cabinet minister, and the conversation was shameful. Even proposing that what we need is to go and bribe a judge. Andrew Mansa, as I am seated with you today, in 2021, from State House staff were boasting and called one of the candidates in Patrick Banda in Lusangazi, saying, don't go and file in. In my hearing, don't file in for nomination because we are now in charge of the judiciary. We call judges to our homes. In my hearing, and I decided as a patriot to caution Misaka in the HM that if this is true, stop interfering with the judiciary. I was arrested, taken to court. Today I'm sitting with a conviction on my head for speaking out for the judiciary that it should not be interfered with. If Chavinga can say to a minister, we need to go and bribe a judge in South Africa, what of our own judges here? What of our own magistrates here? If that is the kind of conversation held at a level of cabinet minister, and it also involves State House. I went at some point having somebody abducted who was council chairperson in Lusangazi by a minister for the Eastern Province, brought into Lusaka. I have discussed this matter here, and taken to Ndeke House here, where he was joined by Levi Ngoma, Patrick Mchereka, Minister then of Justice, Aimbe, taken to Eureka, opposite Baobam, school. And I personally went there to go and disrupt that meeting, that this criminal act should not be undertaken, is in public domain. All those noble steps, what do they land us into? Arrests, court, convictions. 2 women, young ladies in Eastern Province, are in jail today for basically commenting over the way the issue of the body of President Lungu is being handled. They have been convicted, some of them for over 2 years. And ba Mwansa, icharo chile onaika before us, people are being taken to prison for challenging the ills of UPND in broad daylight, and everybody seems to be paying a blind eye. There is a gentleman in Eastern Province by the name of Chirufia, Benjamin Chirufia Chala, whose farm has been ransacked. They have stolen money. He was even an agent he was running like an outgrower scheme for tobacco, promoting tobacco farmers in Eastern Province. They even steal 1.9 million kwacha, because apparently it is alleged that when this boy called Waimi, who is alleged to have been insulting the president wherever he was, insults, not anything else, and insults which I said some of them in Bemba and so on, and our dialect, there are certain things we may consider an insult, when I speak them in Tonga, but they may not be insults if you come to my village in Wengo. Just like there are certain things which are said in Bemba, they may be considered the insults, but if you go to Malore, they are not insults. That's how diverse we are as a people. That boy has disappeared, is not to be seen. This Chishala, because he met that boy trying to find his way, I think near his farm or something, and he gave him a lift to, even when he had already gone through the passport processes and stamped, he was legally in Malawi. Just that contact has led to this man being threatened of death and so on and so forth. You understand? And as a people, all these things are happening to individuals, are happening to institutions. PF today, we're talking of going to the conference. Are you telling me that the Zambian people don't know that the only reason why Chavinga can even be said to be something is because Hakainde HM has interfered with the Registrar Society? Are you telling me that Mrs. Mende was removed from that office of Registrar Society properly? What was the motivation? Just refusing to be part of an illegality became an offense to a point of being booted out in that manner? And we're here seated wanting to discuss peripheral issues when we have one who we are building on our own. From a small dictator, through tolerance, we are building into a monster that will eat everybody. Look at ECZ, cadres there. Look at now the issues you are trying to refer to in terms of a systematic, well-orchestrated, states, managed, illicit losses of finances. How can we have a thick report reporting to us that in just about 10 or so months, we have lost over 140 billion kwacha in illicit losses? And we're seated here thinking that it just happened. An economy as small as ours in Zambia, can we lose 140 billion kwacha without the state knowing, without the president knowing? How was this money being carried? In Ukwa bags? If it is through bank transfers, you can have transfers going to a point of 140 billion kwacha without the state knowing? Colleagues, let's be serious. Our country is bleeding. Today, UPND boasts if you wait kuchamboli at Stokobata, but it shunga Stokobata, imena ine, ichanona chupa. You understand? Ichanona chupa at this particular point, but it will quite number later 30 million kwacha per constituency every year. 30 million kwacha per constituency every year by 5 years. That's 150 million kwacha per constituency. But if you divide that 140 or plus billion kwacha per constituency, it gives you slightly above 850 something million kwacha per constituency. Do you know what 850 something million kwacha would do for a small constituency like Momba constituency where I come from? What it would do, even here in urban constituencies like Kanyama, Mandevu, Kawata, Munali, all these constituencies, 800. An average of 1 million or 1 billion per constituency. And it's not that it has been lost. It has been externalized into private pockets. And we're expected to be having a conversation as if life continues as usual. Judicial officers who are being used to, stifle the voice of the opposition, how much are they getting at personal level? Those judges, whether it is in the Supreme Court, in the Con Court, in the High Court, those magistrates, in the Court of Appeal, how much are they getting at personal level to be aiding the UPND to silence the opposition? And so much money is going out, and my children are expected to have a future. And we're comfortable. We're comfortable. We're comfortable. When we are taken to jail, we are fools for speaking out. People call us names for speaking out against this injustice. Do you know what 140 billion kwacha can do for this country? We even, on top of these illicit losses, we allow foreign mine companies to start getting our resources without any tax whatsoever. The mineral royalty, you say, is taxable. And Msokotwani can go home and find sleep for sabotaging the interests of the Zambian people. Aka Indechilema can be allowed to go home without being questioned. He will come and start with his deep voice, start talking like he's talking to his animals at the farm. What is going on with us as a people? These are resources that Zambians must enjoy. You see, I don't know, and we're going to be marching towards 2026. We're marching towards 2026, still playing the same petty politics, still posturing around personal interest. It's like a game. We're competing for positions and not competing to salvage and save the Zambian people. You can even ask me a question, oh, the Tonse Alliance, what's our governing documents and so on. How can it be like that? This is supposed to be an obvious. All of us in opposition, we unite. Regardless of who's going to be president, all we need is to put a criteria and be able to say at least the minimum standard must be this for somebody to become president. And therefore, whoever meets that criteria, wherever this country is polarized on tribal lines. It has not only now ended with UPND being tribal. Even among ourselves, you can see people whispering here and all that. Even when we have defended everybody on tribal arrangement, somebody will even have the guts and say Zambezi region. This nonsense, when is it going to come to an end? That's how I keep on saying, UPND continue beyond 2026. The damage they will cause, you are younger than me. Maybe last year, maybe you just have your firstborn. When we are talking like this, it's not about a political ambition. It's about thinking about your future. You want to thrive. You want your children to thrive.
Another aspect of this conversation is the state of the economy. Honorable Raphael Nakacinda, the economy seems to be picking up the past 6 months. We've seen the appreciation of our currency, a huge jump from 28 now to 22.90. But also thereafter, we did see also just a few weeks ago, the Energy Regulation Board getting to announce the new fuel prices. Fuel is now cheaper than it was, in the previous months. But also, we've seen on the market how the price of milling meal has exponentially dropped from 350 Other places were 450 now to 215. The IMF, has projected that our growth per GDP will grow by 6.6%, by December. We've seen massive investments in the energy sector. Recently, the president, did get to commission Chisamba, a power plant producing, about 100, megawatts, and they announces that so many, are coming up in the next, few months. With these happenings in the economy, aren't you proud that we are getting somewhere, especially that we're coming from a place where the cost of living was unprecedentedly high?
Andrew, if you had paid attention to what I was saying about the fake report, you would have abandoned that question. Echisungu tulanda mu Zambia. We are too talkative as Zambians. We talk too much. And this GDP nonsense, we keep on feeding our children. How much do you have in your pocket? Well, that's a question that begs an answer. Okay? Our people out there are suffering. We want to feed them with GDP. We want to feed them with narratives of people who have held us under the thumb for a long time. IMF is not our friend. IMF is a tool of, imperialist organization to keep Africa under. World Bank is not our friend. They keep on telling us that our equity is nothing to talk about because they are in charge of our resources and everything. They don't even add it to what we are worth. And then they tell you you are indebted. The so-called debt we are talking about, if we were to speak in real terms what we are worth, it's nothing, it's pocket change. It can be paid within a short period of time if you are serious.
Oh, if you ought to pay it as patriotic front when you're in government.
Listen, I'm saying collectively as Zambians, UNIP, MMD, PF, now UPND. We must be ashamed of ourselves that we are repeating the same mistakes. Now I've even made it worse. Okay? People are suffering out there. People are trying to survive just for simple things, maybe welding, barbershop, saloon, taxi drivers, minibus drivers, who are usually used to do, all these political activism on the street. But they are the worst punished as a result of these commitments we make to IMF and so on, and the adjustments they always insist we should make. How come from the 1950s, 1960s up to today, no African country really can talk of having thrived when we have been subjected to IMF World Bank programs for the past over 50 years? We should wake up. We should wake up. How can 140 billion kwacha leave this country and we're saying the economy is improving? But maybe the 140 billion kwacha and the economy is improving. Are we not just being mocked? Are we not just mocking ourselves? To even discuss the economy at this particular event, when something over, I don't know how much the percentage will be over our equity in terms of our GDP, if you like, as a country, our budget, the actual budget that we thought we could be able to spend for this year.
So for you, as opposition, these economic fundamentals don't mean nothing.
The real economic fundamentals.
Because the same numbers don't lie.
Which numbers? I asked you of a very important number. How much do you have in the pocket? You can't confidently answer. In UPND, there's no money. People are suffering out there. Last night, I went to a funeral. In the dark, because I finished my programs quite late, there was road shedding. People are eating, even soya chunks are a diamond now. if you don't have shoe permanent, things are bad and tough in this country. That rhetoric, take it to community house, take it to Akainda and his jokers, Nejito and the rest who are at State House who joke around with him. Things on the ground are tough. Abantu kuchisokone, kuchipurukusu, kuchimwemwe, kwamulenga, abantu kudambwa, north, south, whatever you can call it, at our good market in Livingstone, come to Soweto market here, go to all these places, go to Kasama, go to Chipata. Magazine, imeende kuja Konse ku market ya Chipata. Things are terrible.
The 4 by-elections are coming up next month. You are participating as NCP, obviously under Tonse Alliance. How confident are you that you're going to win this seat? But also coupled with the announcement that came through from the Electoral Commission of Zambia to the effect that non-political players that are participating in a by-election should wear, they're not allowing regalia for non-participating political parties, and this did unsettle you as a Tonse.
I mean, the complex situation about this by-election is that where the judiciary is properly functioning, we will not even have that by-election, because the member of parliament for which that by-election was declared vacant is out on bail. She was jailed for defending democracy and the rights of a member of parliament for a few months. She came out on bail. Under normal circumstance where the law and the rule of law applies, there was not going to be a by-election there. She challenged and petitioned, first of all, around her going back to parliament, which for me I even find wrong, because she just needed to get into parliament. There was no need to petition anybody. But anyway, maybe the lawyers are thinking otherwise. 2, there is somebody, I think Mr. Brobna Changara, a human rights activist, who has also challenged that you can't have a nomination and proceed with the election because of these factors. We are here to hear what the judiciary will say. So as far as I'm concerned, Mabonga should be in parliament. There is also precedence in time past, and the law hasn't changed significantly. My uncle or elder brother, Dr. Kater Karumba, at some point was convicted as a member of parliament. He went to prison, came out on bail, he went back to parliament. He didn't just go back to parliament and serve that term. If I'm not mistaken, he even contested and came back to parliament. Because the law, according to a constitutional provision, you are deemed innocent until proven what? Guilty. If the lower court convicts you, you are not satisfied with the conviction, you have the right to appeal. When you appeal, you apply for bail. When you come out on bail, you are innocent until proven guilty by the higher court. So you can't be denied the rights of a citizen at that particular point. That's the law. That's the law.
You're still participating in this election?
Purely because of the criminality around ECZ. What happened to Boma and Lusambo, what happened to Malanji, is what is causing us to still do things within the environment we are living in, to give an opportunity for those people who feel disfranchised, that why not giving us a chance to even just try and fight by casting a vote. We have tried to appeal that even if we cast votes within the by-election, these people come and steal the votes through violence and so on with the aid of the police and everybody. But we can't be crybabies all the time. We have to go in the trenches and see what we can salvage. This is a situation where we have to fight and fight. Fight and fight. There are people who come to question Mr. Nakacinda, don't you see that maybe this situation is unredeemable? But patriotism has a way of causing you to wake up from your bed to go and fight again. I think that's what was causing the Kaundas to wake up. That was what was causing the Kapwepwes to wake up.
There's been over 100 by-elections since 2021, and You've lost majority of these by-elections, Honorable Raphael Nakacinda. Do you think you're getting momentum, especially as we build to next year?
I think what speaks to me as a political scientist is that to study the patterns. MMD was winning by-elections prior to the loss in 2011. PF were winning by-elections prior to the loss in 2021. UPND is winning by-elections prior to their loss in 2026.
If you look at the pattern for those historical events that you've given, you realize that the biggest opposition at that time was very consistent, coming out second in those respective by-elections. The pattern, however, for these by-elections has been rather different. You find that what comes out second in this particular respective by-election is Citizens First. They're the Socialist Party. This time around it's Tonse through NCP. And so there's no consistency in terms of, for example, you, the NCP, having to come out second across the country.
You haven't paid attention in analyzing your by-elections. Remember that from the time that we had that challenge with Mao Sampa, the PF never participated in any by-election. The only time that we came to participate through NCP was in Kaambwa. So go and look at the results. Pambashe, go and look at the results. Petauke, we won. Lumezi, look at the results. The local government by-election, look at the results. We are actually, even with voter apathy, our margins are even better than UPND in opposition when they are competing against the ruling Patriotic Front. For us, we are scoring more than 50%.
No, they're getting into your strongholds.
We were getting into their strongholds also. We're winning in by-elections in the West End and so on. It meant nothing in 2021.
Your concluding remarks as we close the program tonight.
The biggest signal is that without even so much campaign in Western Province, in 2 awards, we got over 50% of the vote, with over 15 ministers and MPs of Western Province, and over 100 vehicles in a ward where there are only 3 polling stations. They killed all kinds of animals, but the people of Western Province in 2 awards were all still determined with the brutality to go and cast their vote. Those are the places you go and analyze. Not what happens in Rumezi would have won. We had a funeral. It was not going to moral right for people like myself, Honorable Rubin, and others to be found campaigning there. Okay? Now that there is this delay and their court sessions, it's justifiable because now it's no longer a normal funeral situation. They are court sessions. So therefore, there is some meaningful input being made in Mfuwe, in Mpongwe, as well as in Chereng. The real issue is the brutality. We have to find a formula collective as Zambians to protect the vote, not only now, but also in the future. But as I conclude, the question I have for President HH, with what is going on, clearly the Zambian people have resolved to vote against you in 2026. Are you going to be that noble leader that will concede defeat and hand over power smoothly to the next president? That's a question we must answer. Thank you very much and good evening.
Secretary General of the Tonse Alliance and the Patriotic Front, Honorable Raphael Nakacinda, thank you so much for making time to appear on tonight's edition of Costa.
Thank you and good night.
Well, that was our discussion with the Tonse Secretary General as well as the Patriotic Front Secretary General, Honorable Raphael Nakacinda. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you so much for watching. See you again on Sunday for the exclusive edition of Costa.